Subscribe or they will haunt you. What's the most supernatural experience you've ever had? Was in my aunt's house with my mom. We were waiting on a repairman since she had to work and heard footsteps upstairs in my grandmother's room. This was a few months after she had passed and we both knew we were the only ones in that house. Soon as that guy left we were gone. That house always creeped me out. Has a history and someone I worked with had a friend that moved in there and never told her the stories until after she told me the creepiest things that happened in that house to her and her friend. Turned white as a sheet. In high school I was sitting in a friend's living room. First time ever in this house. I could describe every room in the house. Floor plans, unused pool table in the basement against a wall, piled with boxes. Freaky feeling. On Monday I called a local restaurant to see if they had any cinnamon rolls left because my pregnant wife really wanted a cinnamon roll. I walked in and before I could say anything the woman behind the counter asked how many cinnamon rolls I want. My first time buying from them too. I asked how she knew and with a completely straight face said, "Oh sorry, I have a lot of witches in my family." Ordered a pizza, point had a couple of slices, then took a shower. Once I came out the rest of the pizza was gone. My dad died 2 years ago. My brother was at his house down the street. My children and I were laying on my bed talking about all the great times with my dad when the back door opened and closed. I crept down the hall to see who came in. And my brother called while I was in the hall. He said, "It's over." And I said, "What?" And he said, "Get over here." Dad came to tell us he had passed. I have no doubt. For the next month I would catch a whiff of his cigarettes or his cologne, especially when I was having a hard time. I'm sure he was just making sure I would get through the tough time. Not sure if this counts as supernatural, but here it goes. The summer after I graduated high school I got a job delivering pizza to help save money for college. I had a lot of run-ins with some pretty weird characters but nothing like what happened this one night. It was a Friday night. We deliver pizzas until 3 AM Fridays and Saturdays. It was 2:45 AM and we were preparing to close when our manager said we got a call for a delivery at place almost 20 minutes away. Being the desperate for money teenager I was, I offered to do the delivery. This was before smartphones had GPS, so I used a Garmin. I plugged in the address and off I went. The Garmin took me deep into the backwoods of rural Texas. I finally arrived to my destination. The house looked like something in a horror movie. Big wooden 2-story house with no lights on. The first thing I noticed about the house was that the front door was wide open. I sat in my car for a few minutes debating on turning back and claiming no one was home. Something just didn't feel right. I needed the tip money, so I sucked it up and approached the house. When I got to the open front door I didn't enter. Instead I knocked. No one answered. I knocked again as loud as I could. No response. I finally got the courage to say something. "Pizza delivery. Anyone home?" There was a few seconds of silence until I heard a weird voice upstairs. I walked in the house and could barely make out my surroundings because it was so dark. I make it to the bottom of the stairs and look up into the dark abyss. Again I said, "Pizza delivery." The voice spoke again. "Come upstairs." I can't get out of bed. Something was very off about this voice. It didn't sound normal. The best I can describe it is if a dog somehow learned to talk but still had trouble pronouncing human words. The hair stood up on my neck. There was no fucking way I was going up there. The tip wasn't worth it. I placed the pizza at the bottom of the stairs and shouted, "I'm leaving it here at the bottom of the stairs. Have a good night." As I turned away the voice said, "No. Come upstairs. I can't get out of bed." I replied, "I'm sorry, I'm not even allowed to enter someone's home on the job. You'll have to come get it." I heard some loud banging from upstairs with the voice shouting at full volume, "Come upstairs. I can't come out of bed." The voice shouted this over and over again, like it was a recording on a loop. The banging got louder and louder as the voice got louder. I noped the fuck out of there at full speed. To this day I have no idea what the fuck happened in that house. Edit. I was not expecting So many people to be interested in this story. I'll try to answer some common questions. They were supposed to pay by cash, so I guess they got the pie on the house. No, I never went back. Not even during the day. A lot of people are saying old or crippled person. Then who the fuck left the front door wide open? No, I didn't try to turn on the light. It was already so late, I just wanted to drop off the pizza and go home. A lot of you are talking about skinwalkers. I had to Google it, and I must say this story is a lot more creepier after reading about them. This was in Spring, Texas. I live in a small village in Louisiana. Most women I know have had supernatural experiences of varying degrees. My mom's mom, saw a ghost boy in her family home. My great aunt, Mormore's sister, heard God's voice at a cemetery, warning her to stay in her car. My mom heard the disembodied voice of a little girl giggling and yelling mama in Mormore's family home. Those are all pretty par for the course. Could easily be explained away by them mishearing things or having a brief hallucination. For me, it was a little more substantial. I have crazy vivid dreams. The kind that have so much detail in them that my more superstitious friends and family believe they aren't dreams at all. Just glimpses into potential past lives. However, they've always just been dreams to me. Sure, they were realistic in ways they shouldn't have been, but dream science is weird. Then, when I was 12, I had a dream that came true. Like I said earlier, I live in Louisiana. We have lots of storms, especially in the spring and summer. One day, in that weird week, when it's too warm to be spring, but not humid enough to be summer, there was a huge thunderstorm. I fell asleep on the couch listening to it. I dreamed that a tornado happened near Mormore's family home. The tornado wrecked her rose bushes, tore down her willow tree, and ripped off shingles in a specific part of the roof. The next thing I know, my mom is standing over me and rushing me to get dressed. She says Mormore's house was hit by a tornado. We drive to her place, and the yard looks exactly like it did in my dream. Same wrecked rose bushes, same torn up willow tree, and in the exact spot in my dream, missing shingles. I told mom and Mormore what I had dreamed, and that's when they told me about the weird things that happened to the women in our family. I was a rookie cop when my brother committed suicide. He was one of my older siblings, but we were very close. He died in another state, and I had a lot of guilt then about not recognizing the signs. His remains were in bad shape by the time he was discovered, so it was a closed coffin service. About a week after he died, I was back at work one night, and my partner and I see a pimp pistol whipping one of his girls. I jump out, and the pimp sees me, and the foot chase was on. I was running after him, gun in hand, and he cuts through a narrow corridor under a building that leads to a courtyard in the middle. Right before I reach the courtyard, I hear "It's okay" in my dead brother's voice. I hit the courtyard and the guy is against the side pointing a gun at my head and squeezes the trigger twice. I froze for a millisecond and then started beating him in the head with my revolver. Till this day, I don't know why I didn't just shoot him, cuff him and walk him back to the street and find my partner. I tell my partner about him squeezing the trigger, but not the voice I heard. We unload the gun, .32 revolver, right there, and 2 bullets have strike marks on them. Take the gun to the lab for testing. Tell the tech the story. He puts the 2 bullets with strike marks back in and shoots into the test tank. Both bullets fired. When I was 15, I woke up in the middle of the night and saw this strange spotlight appear on my wall. It was a circle made up of a bunch of bright circular dots within it. It came on strong, then rotated 90 degrees, and then turned off. It was so surreal, because the light was extremely bright, and yet it was also focused on that one spot on my wall. When I woke up the next morning I couldn't get the image out of my head, but I just assumed I must have dreamed it. My sister and I were talking over breakfast, and she said I had this dream last night. My entire room suddenly lit up with these circular dots floating around my room. I got really excited that actually happened. I woke up and saw it too. My sister froze. How is that possible? My blinds are completely shut. Chills to this day. My best friend's dad, who was a second father to me, came to me in a dream and told me to tell my best friend that he loved her and that he was sorry. I woke up to my cell phone ringing to find it was my best friend, absolutely hysterical, telling me that he finally passed away from sclerosis. I sobbed all day. He was a drunk our whole lives, but it still hurt. I've posted about this before, but when I was about 9 years old, 1995, in the middle of a bright summer day, I went to the refrigerator to get a popsicle. Suddenly a roughly teenage looking guy, with long brown hair, wearing a beige turtleneck and red plaid bell bottoms, turned around the corner into the hallway to my left, then vanished from toe to head as I looked at him. Told no one about it for years, until after my mother mentioned meeting the, now grown, kids who lived in the house before us, who asked her if she'd seen the bell-bottom ghost. When I was between the ages of 4 to 6, I used to see a little blonde boy through this mirrored armoire in my parents' bedroom. The armoire was big and wooden, but had mirrored accents and mirrors running all the way around the base. If I laid on the carpet in front of it and looked into the mirrors on the bottom, sometimes I'd see a little blonde boy in a red sweater in the corner of the room, far away and a little distorted, but still very clear. He would sit with his back to me, looking out the windows to the backyard. I don't remember ever seeing his face. I don't think I saw him many times, but I do remember his image very clearly. In my little kid mind, I thought I invented this super neat mirror trick by myself, so I tried to get my parents to see it too. They always refused, and my mom especially would get super mad at me for asking. I stopped seeing the boy when I stopped playing in their bedroom as much, and knew mirrors shouldn't work like that. When I got older, I chalked it up to my overactive kid brain. Didn't think much of it tbh. Years and years later, when I was an adult and long after my parents had sold that house, my mom asked me about the armoire out of the blue, then told me that she used to see the little boy too. Not in the mirrors, but sometimes just out the corners of her eyes, like she'd be cooking, and catch a glimpse of blonde hair pass by her hips, at a kid's height. And occasionally in dreams. It didn't happen too often, but just enough to deeply freak them out. So when I mentioned seeing the same little boy, my mom was just terrified herself. There were other strange stuff in that house, but this was 100% the most vivid I remember. I used to do pest control. Went to a customer's business for the first time. As I walked in the office, I noticed some pictures that were supposed to be hanging on the wall were on the ground, and then saw some papers which looked like they had been thrown and scattered off a desk. I picked everything up so I could apply treatment to the floorboards and surrounding rooms. I then went to treat the only restroom in the office. I simply knocked on the door as a courtesy, as I always do, before entering any restroom. There was no reply, for nobody was in there, so I went and applied treatment to the restroom and I closed the door behind me. As I walked away from the door, I know I heard somebody grab the door handle, twist it open and open the door. I turned around and looked to see nobody behind me, but a door swinging open. The hair on my neck instantly stood up, and I put 2 and 2 together. I grabbed my shit and ran downstairs. The receptionist saw me and started laughing. She asked me if I had met their little friend upstairs.